We got one presenter before then. It's Kaitlynn Young, and Kaitlynn's my new hero. She's a fourth-year student at University of Detroit Mercy in the architecture program. Woo! And she is an organizer, which I find a little challenging, but she's been organizing art shows and Polish exchange students and student publications, and sometimes her own life. So let's see what she's been up to. Kaitlynn, where are you? There she is. Come on up here and tell us about it.
Hi everyone, I'm Kaitlynn. Today I'm going to be presenting a project that I did in my design studio last semester, and we studied the theme of power, so we all designed a school. And one of our first challenges that our studio professor gave us was to do a reanalysis of the site and to reconsider the site in a new way. And the first thing most architecture students do when they go to the site is they take a million pictures. And we're not really sure why, and we just usually make collages later on, and we don't know what they mean. So what I ended up doing was I took all these photographs, 39 photographs, and when I brought them back into my studio, I saw a trend in the time periods that I took them. So I was trying to think of a way that I could create data from these photographs. The plan of the site is this rectangular shape here, and for every photograph, I did a planned view, a projected view of what that photograph captured on the site. So I ended up with a total of 39 planned views, which you'll see in the next slide, which they're kind of hard to see, but this was literal data of my experience on the site. It was a rural site, and it ended up capturing my true experience there. And this would later inform the actual architecture of the site. So kind of the idea that one person's experience or the true experience of the site could inform the architecture later on. So those three sets of compilations of plans then showed, when overlaid, repetition of experience on the site. And I could start to see patterns and places on the site that had meaning. And these started to transform into three-dimensional models. I created other images with the same idea of taking these fragmented photos and trying to defragment them in a way that would give me more information. These were ground sky studies that revealed texture from the site. And through this process, when I translated the negative of the study, I was extracting pieces all the time, and I was trying to figure out ways to recompose those pieces in order to reveal new textures of information on the site and how they could reveal shadows and light and things like that. The next part of the studio was to understand the school, what the school means in architecture. Past schools were considered schools of discipline or spaces of enclosure, which prepared students for a type of job like the factory, where people have rigid schedules and bells and whistles which instruct them for things to do. So what would a school look like in the 21st century that would instead prepare a student for a type of job, for instance in a corporation, which isn't necessarily a space of enclosure? This was a school of discipline that I found, that I designed, for example, that would allow an administrator to stand in one location and see down every single hallway in order to control the space of the school. How could I delete that? Well, I could take the school and I could delete all the hallways, and it would create a type of space that would be districts for teachers to control their students, but a school without administration. So the studio was really about rethinking the school and then later on taking these ideas and infusing them into our initial site studies. This was a study of experience through time of that typology of the school. So all of these investigations began to be translated into my initial site studies, and I kind of found that in order to create a different type of school, you would need to, for instance, create different types of spaces that would be disconnected. And a school could become more open within a landscape or within a city, not necessarily with rigid connections. And I began to take those initial site studies that I had and overlay them onto each other, and whenever they folded together, architectural elements would rise up from those. So I kind of had this idea that there would be learning towers instead of classrooms. And this eventually, these same ideas became the final model, which took my 39 experiences on the site and became the plan of the site. And in the same way that I defragmented elements of the site previously, the physical plan, all of the shapes of the plan were reflected as architectural elements and then pushed and pulled on the landscape in order to create really nice sight lines and particular overlaps of spaces that would kind of represent the actual place. So for instance, on the top there was a cemetery, and so the experience from the photography ended up informing the architecture and being responsive to what was already there. These were some sections that I did, kind of playing with that idea of repetition, and showing kind of 2.5 dimensional drawings, I guess, that were 3D in a way that could start to show spatial places. And one interesting thing that arrived from this pushing and pulling of the ground plane was that the top of the model and the bottom of the model were almost the same. And so it became kind of interesting to see how the site was kind of ungrounded in a way. And these were, what I ended up doing was pushing the floor 20 feet down, and all of these holes in the site became light wells. And so the idea is that a student is free to roam around the landscape, also roam around the kind of ground floor basement of the site, and in the end, the surveillance that they have rather than administration is kind of freedom. But freedom in the sense that they're always being watched, say, by video cameras or new technology. So their freedom is, in a sense, is self-control. And these were drawings that I did of sections of that. So this was the school of control that I ended up designing, and it was a great fun project, and I was able to kind of take some of those theoretical ideas that I had about the school and translate them into architecture. So thank you, and have a good night.
I'd like you guys to know that Kaitlynn is so organized that without even meaning to, she organized me. The last thing that she told us is that she'd like everyone to know that her favorite flower is a daisy, and her favorite drink is a Molson. And then I thought, drink. Intermission, don't forget, proceeds of the bar go to help fund Japan relief, so make sure you drink early and drink often. Presenters we would like to have meet us up by the fountain, because we would like to get a presenter photo before everybody disperses.